All right, so I was talking to this old lady. She was like 80, 90 years old several years ago. And she starts crying about how she wished that I go to church because I need God and I need to meet a young woman and have many babies, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked her dead in the eyes and I said, well, I can't. And she's like, well, why not? And I leaned down close and I told her, because your God won't save us. I have to be strong. And then she started bawling because she knew it was true. She didn't even argue with me about it.
And this is Hyperborean Radio. I am the lore keeper, and that was the Celtic god. How is all the dirty heathens out there today?
Well, I'm hoping that they're pretty all right. I like to think a lot of people just said, I'm good because I'm listening to Hyperborean Radio.
That'd be good. What we kind of want to talk about today is, what's the word? Character.
Yeah.
Character and our people's nature, and actually, oddly enough, we don't typically talk about this, but simply put, why you can never convert someone to ethnic ways. It is impossible. You can convert someone to a neo-pagan New Age religion.
Well,
but you can't.
And that's it. You can convert that. You can convert people to a religion, but you cannot convert them to a way. And it is a way of being. The gods are there. The stories are important. The house spirits, all this stuff, but it's not a religion. It is literally a way of being. It is how you think. It is how you behave. It is
it's a way of being.
Yeah, it is just a way of being.
Well, and
a religion is just doing things and saying things. That you can convert people to. But actually being is something else. And there's actually a few questions that can come up, a few topics that can come up that will show if somebody is even capable of it.
Yes, and this was actually something we were talking about, is that people are going to be instinctively drawn to elves. They're going to be instinctively drawn to Thor. They're going to be instinctively drawn to certain symbols and whatnot.
Well, and certain ideas that they've been taught, too, like the concept of good and evil. The idea that there really is no good and evil confuses the living shit out of most people.
Oh, yeah, and it is something people can work through. So that one's not really a deal breaker. But there are certain things I've noticed that if you start talking to people about them and they try to weasel their way out of it, or they start trying to rationalize why not doing it is good or superior, it's a sign that they will never ever even think about going ethnic ways.
Well, one of those questions, for instance, is the idea of killing. Most people, well, it's not most people. But some people, you bring up the idea of sometimes killing is justified and needs to be done. And they're like, no, there's never any need for killing or violence, and Batman doesn't kill people, and so Batman kills a lot of motherfuckers, just not the people he should.
Oh, yeah, it's like the meme, insert character never killed someone. Scenes where they clearly killed dozens of people.
Yes. And then other people are like, even the most peace-loving people, they'll stop and think about it for a second, and they're like, yes, sometimes it needs to be done. It's a complete different foundation. The one can accept reality and the other one can't.
Well, and a lot of the times I've noticed this, the reason people are adverse to the idea of, within ethnic ways, killing is occasionally justified. Like, you just look at our stories. It's never a situation of
just oceans of blood.
Yes. I mean, it's even a joke. It's not a good Celtic story if at least several people don't die.
Yeah.
And that's just a reality. It's because within the ethnic ways, there is no black and white. There are shades of green.
This is what makes a good Celtic story. Several people die or one Celtic man cries. Because these two things are kind of rarities.
Yes. They make it noteworthy.
Yes, it makes it noteworthy.
But the reality is like duels. Our people used to have duels for a reason. They became overly ritualistic towards the end, overly ritualized.
Right. Well, and duels, you bring up duels to some people, they automatically go straight to people killing each other. It's a duel to the death. Here's the thing. If you've ever been in a fist fight, you've been in a duel.
Oh, yeah, and really, I have had plenty of men admit, like, they wish that it was still acceptable to basically tell someone, meet me outside. We're finishing this now. I'm done with you. They want that to be an option because it would actually save a lot more friendships and would also keep bad blood from instigating. It's like that one line from The Godfather where Clemenza says, there's got to be a little war every 10 years. It helps clean out the bad blood.
But there's a lot of these little things. Let me see. The concept that marriage should have sacrifice involved.
Yes, that it's not a legal contract. It never should be a legal contract. It never should have become a legal contract. And then I've described, and not to women that are not currently engaged or anything, but to women that are actually engaged. Like they supposedly love their man and are marrying him. And I tell them what a traditional
the procession.
wedding.
Let's go with the easy one. Just the procession.
Oh, yeah, which is the women's role typically. And there's many different versions of this, but the wedding procession is walking from her home to wherever the wedding's taking place, probably the guy's home.
In as straight a line as possible.
Yes. Like there's a famous story of one Celtic queen where she would literally break rocks, cut down trees so she did not have to go around. And that's a green area in the rules where you can actually go around things that are obviously in your way.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she was like, no, I will not do that.
Straight line.
Like your grandmother actually did the procession. Well, not grandmother. Great-grandmother did the procession back in the old country.
And crossed a mountain.
Yes, she actually climbed down and climbed up just to get to
the other way around, but yes.
Climbed up and climbed down.
There you go.
But
and it wasn't through any mountain pass. She took the hard route.
And that is something I have told women about. And while they will love the idea of the guy doing the gauntlet, or the male side, which is usually feats of physical daring do, like the whole speak now or forever hold your peace, that used to potentially be very violent.
Yes.
Like this whole...
Sometimes it ended in outright clan warfare.
Yes. Well, and the reality is I was always confused as a kid as to why that part existed because I didn't have context. Like, why would you even ask that? But now it makes sense. It's because it used to be in the gauntlet, if a guy did not want these two getting married, like he wanted the girl or he just thought the girl was really bad for the guy, there's many different reasons. Yeah. He could actually fight him until he could basically keep him from going to the wedding.
Right, and the modern mind says, well, it's because the guy wants the girl and he's so in love with her. Where's the idea that she isn't worthy of him? He's probably a hero. And she's a milkmaid who's never done anything and avoided conflict the entirety of her life. That is not a good match for a hero.
No, and it's actually something that has shown up in media, the last-minute reveal that stops the wedding. Like, oh, no, don't marry her. She's a man.
Yeah.
Something like that. There's always these little bits, and that's why these customs exist, but they've become watered down. And part of the reason that when I notice women, I will tell them about the procession or the easy version, because processions are kind of hard in modern society, is the carrying the man's weight across the,
basically the equivalent of, but there's the aisle that the brides walk down in modern day, right? She would carry his weight through that procession, through the marriage area, and then drop it where they're getting married at. That would be the equivalent.
Yes, it's to prove that she's willing to not only hold up her weight, but his weight, like the sickness and health thing.
Yeah, it's a literal representation of that.
Well, I've actually seen this in real life. Woman is married to a man. Man gets injured to the point where he can't walk anymore. The woman literally bolts in the middle of a work day and goes halfway across the state to get away from him after finding out he won't walk again.
Yeah.
Doesn't stick around to take care of him, doesn't fulfill the marriage vows, doesn't do any of that. Just, oh crap, now I'm going to have to do the work. And
Shit
then
just got real.
Yeah. So she bolts. I have seen this in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, and I don't expect every woman to think, oh, that's great. But it's the revulsion and the fear in their eyes when this is brought up, because they know they wouldn't do it.
And they know that what we're saying is true. That's the only thing that inspires this kind of reaction is when we say these outlandish things and people instinctively know that it's true. This is the raw truth of it, and I don't like it. And then that's why the reactions that we are getting. If they thought that we was just making shit up, we wouldn't get the reactions that we're getting.
No. Well, it's like the third one, because we talked about 3 big ones, and these are from actual conversations we've had. The third one was oaths, and your word having to mean something. If you make an oath, you have to keep it. There's no weaseling out of it. There is, you either complete it or you don't, and you better complete it. Because it used to be, like we said at the beginning,
well,
killing
it
was an
depend on the oath, because you're going to go to the taking of the hand, right?
Taking of the hand or straight up death.
Right. And that would depend on the oath. But the taking of the hand is, I swear on this insert thing.
Yeah, like
it can be a holly bibble, it can be a stump, it can be the hero's sword, it can be the community stone. It doesn't matter. You break your oath, that hand now belongs to the people, and they're honor bound to take it. The taking of the life, that would be a very important public. I swear by my life that I will insert vow. Well, if you break your vow, guess what you lost? Your freaking life. It was not a turn of phrase.
No,
it was a literal thing. But
Well,
you also got to be careful making vows, because you can do it all. People do it all the time. They vow and they vow and they vow, and they know not what they vow. And you don't have to say the words, well, I vow, I swear, I oath, I promise. You don't have to do that. It's saying something with conviction.
or something as simple as, I can do that for you.
Yes. And again, saying it with conviction.
Well, and actually,
So it's not the words, it's the way that it's said.
well, even sealing something with a handshake.
Yeah. Which is the same thing. That'd be another thing that might potentially cost you a hand.
These are the sorts of things that I've noticed people get really uncomfortable with. You know, it's like that old saying, everybody wants to be a heathen until it's time to do heathen shit.
Mm-hmm. You guys are welcome for that, by the way.
Yes. But it's because people are, when they go to look for religion, they're not looking for, well, not religion. When they go to look for spirituality, when they look into our ethnic ways, more often than not, people get into it because it looks cool, because of that cool TV show, because of that or that. And that's a valid way to get into it. But a lot of people stop there. And it's because past the superficial part is a lot of hard work.
I guess you can look at it that way.
Well, that's how most people see it.
Yeah,
That's
how
what I
most
mean.
people see it. But in reality, it should come just natural, easy as breathing.
Well, nobody likes getting lied to. Nobody likes having a promise broken.
Everybody
to them.
knows that liar. That's what we're talking about, is that liar where you know that he's lying, so don't believe him, and you know that he's lying because his lips are moving. Those people, there's still the consequence of lying, of not keeping your word.
Yes. Or something as simple as everybody has wanted to punch a motherfucker in the face at least once.
Yeah. Or maybe should have been punched in the face. We all know this, and we acknowledge, yeah, and those are usually the people that get terrified of, oh, shit, I'm the one that would get beat up all the time.
Yes, there would
Because
be,
I am a piece of crap.
oh, crud, the idea that someone else can actually give me consequences for what I do.
Or
'Cause-
say.
Yes, because there are people that mouth off because they know that if someone strikes them back for basically being a cunt.
Yeah, they can use violence by proxy to get them back.
Yes, and then the person who is just defending themselves ends up going to jail, going to prison.
Even if it's big quotes, air quotes, just from words. Thing is the left isn't necessarily wrong when they're like, words are violence. They potentially are.
Well, I mean,
Just not the way that they mean it.
no, but like slander. Or this is actually a really common thing.
Slander, empty promises, things like that, they're real. They have real consequences.
False accusations.
Yeah, false accusations. The list is actually pretty freaking long. It's just the way that let's just call them what they are, the moderns. The way that the moderns use it is twisted. It's wrong and it's one-sided. So yeah, they're right, but they're a little bit right and 90% wrong. 10% right, 90% wrong.
Well, and that's the other thing is
that's kind of their hook, though. It's use a little bit of truth and then wrap it around a whole lot of lies so it looks good.
Well, it's like there are plenty of people throughout history that have tried to use the pagan gods to start their own power-hungry cult.
Mm-hmm.
Just pick a god. Somebody's probably used it that way. But when it comes to... let's go with our gods again, because I don't want to focus too heavily just on those three things. But that's how our people react when they hear these things, because they know that this is how our people naturally are. And if it wasn't for society, there would be these things enforced. Mm-hmm. There are men and women that would never be allowed to marry because they would not be seen as worthy. There are people
or compatible.
There are people that would probably have died a while ago, or at the very least gotten their shit together, if they had been allowed to be struck. If violence or challenges were still a valid part of the culture,
or stupidity had consequences.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've even joked about...
not just stupidity, but a little bit of luck as well.
Well, I've even joked about that before. I'm all for removing safety labels from stuff.
Yeah. I'm all for letting people free climb cliffs. The skillful, the strong, the lucky will make it.
The ones that aren't.
The stupid, the weak, the
unlucky.
The unlucky will fall. Simple as that.
Well, and these things are set up because the simple fact is, and we've told people this before, our people by nature are incredibly brutal. That is why we're so peaceful. We're not peaceful because we're inherently pacifistic. We're peaceful because we're inherently violent. We will, like our women, will stab a motherfucker. Our men will go to war. The duels will end in broken teeth at least, if not straight up death, if things go out. When it's like that line from Robert E. Howard, civilized men are more discourteous than savages because they know they can be, oh man, I'm botching this, but
civilized men are more discourteous than savages because they know they can be impolite without having their skulls split as a general thing. There we go.
Yes, and that's the long and the short of it when it comes to your word mattering, the hard work to show that you actually care about the individual, and violence as an option. These three things are actually more indicative of whether or not someone would ever go to ethnic ways than any attraction to the gods. You can like the stories of the gods. You can know every story there is to know about Thor and still not be a pagan, still not be part of ethnic ways.
You can be able to read fluently in Old Norse, in Old Sphere, and Old
Gaelic,
Germanic, and still not be pagan.
You can love going to the woods and still not be heathen. You can still not be pagan. You can still not be a follower of ethnic ways, because while these things are elements that are often associated with it, they are not themselves the brunt of it.
Yes, they are not in and of themselves the thing.
Well, we actually covered this a bit in Godless. It's not that belief in the gods isn't a part of the ethnic way. It's that it's largely not the main focus. So long as you believe in the strength and power of yourself and your people.
Which is itself believing in the gods. It doesn't mean that you have to believe in them as literal beings in another realm. But to believe in the strength and courage of your own people, of yourself and your people, is to believe in the gods, because if nothing else, that's what they represent.
Yes, even if you view them as symbolic, you therefore believe in them as ideals. It's like justice, duty, honor. None of these things exist, and yet they do. We believe in justice.
Yeah,
we believe in duty.
To paraphrase Death, take the finest sieve.
Take the universe and grind it down into the finest powder and put it through the finest sieve and show me one
atom, one molecule
of mercy, of duty, honor, these sorts of things. And yet you want to pretend there is some sort of order in the world, some rightness through which you may be judged. It's the reality. It's shades of green. It's not black and white. And that's the other thing. while it is one of the things that can be overcome, if someone is using a black and white thinking, if someone says the evil one to refer to any of our gods, and they refuse to drop it after it's explained it's not part of the ethnic way,
Yeah. Well,
they
and
just want a bad guy.
Here's the thing. We don't have evil gods. What is my proof? Because we kill monsters by what people think of as evil, which doesn't actually exist, but let's call it what it is, maliciousness. We kill monsters. That's what our people do. We kill the dragons. We kill the cannibal. We kill and what are all the evil witches? All the wicked witches in our stories, they're all cannibals. And what does the hero do? Goes and kills the wicked witch.
Well, it's even how they vilified the pagans, because most people under Christendom weren't actually Christian. That's why, like, everyone likes to bring up the Crusades and the Orders of Knights. Those were mercenaries. They were paid to go do it. That's why the papal offices, the Rome would be freaking raided, is because you didn't pay us. We're going to take all your gold shit. It happened multiple times.
And that's why Friday the 13th happened. And they were rightly convicted, according to the rules of the church. They were rightly convicted of witchcraft.
Yes, because
and devil worship.
They did venerate the old gods. The Templars did venerate some of the old gods. I don't think Baphomet was among them. I think Baphomet was probably propaganda.
Probably. There was probably some additions in there.
But for the longest time, people venerated our gods and the Christian God. It's not what people think. It's because actually Robin Hood, Robin of Nottingham, I think is what it's called. Or Robin of Sherwood, it's a TV show. But there's a scene where the priest even says to Guy of Gisborne, he doesn't care what they do while they're outside of church so long as they come to church and pay their tithe. So long as they do that, they can do whatever the frick they want. They can go to the oak and venerate Herne. Who cares? And then you have, that's the actual church attitude at the time. It's not that they wouldn't go straight witch hunt if they could.
Oh, it's a whole lot of old lady diapers. It just depends.
Yes.
Because if they could get more out of the witch hunt than not doing the witch hunt, then they do the witch hunt. And then they have the trials and they seize the property, they seize the money. However, if they're further off letting the person not do that, they'll turn a blind eye.
Well, yeah, it's profit. That's what all political organizations are after. And then this actually, because there's the black and white thinking, there's the clean-cut line idea of history where there was paganism and then there was Christianity and they just dropped everything, which is how they often present it. But there's also another element that I think is important, which is the supernatural does not exist. Not in the sense of, well, everything is atheist and we must use the scientific method. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is the concept of the natural and the supernatural being separate is itself a Christian concept.
Yeah.
It's an othering.
It's all natural.
Yes. If an elf shows up and starts messing with your stuff, that's as natural as if a bird flew in and did it.
Or as natural as the sun coming up. There is no natural and supernatural. There is just natural.
There is the familiar and the unfamiliar.
You see the mountains stand up after waking up, and it turns out that this mountain that you've gone hunting on is a giant or titan. And it stands up, and that's perfectly natural. That's not a supernatural thing that you're witnessing. It's a great natural, or it's still just natural. It's a natural phenomena that you're watching.
Well, it's like people say, just because you can understand how something works doesn't make it not magic.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, just because we sort of understand that an acorn turns into an oak does not make that not magic.
Mm-hmm.
This freaking acorn turns into one of the strongest trees on earth.
Or our magic mirrors. People laugh at first when in real life, I'll call the cell phones and the computers magic mirrors. And then after a moment, they're like, you know what? That's true. That straight truth. Facts. It is a magic mirror.
Just because we know how. Well, actually, most people don't know how it works. Yeah. It just does.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've had somebody argue that with me. I'm like, well, tell me how your cell phone works. And they can give me generals like radio signals, and I'm like, no, break it right down. Here's some paper and pencil, and tell me actually how it works. And they can't do it because who the fuck knows? Who knows? It's magic.
Well, it's like electricity.
For all the explanations, scientists still don't know how it actually works.
We know
how
it's
to harness
ghost
it.
energy.
We know how to use it, but what is it?
For all we know, ghost energy.
Yeah, which was an actual thing in the 18-somethings, I think. It was harvesting ghost energy, and they tried banning it because you're destroying the ghosts.
Wouldn't that be absolutely horrifying if that turned out to be true?
Yeah, every time we turn on a light, we're killing ghosts.
Yeah, that'd be fucking horrifying.
Now there's people that will never turn their light bulbs off because they're scared of ghosts. Don't be scared of ghosts.
No.
It's not because they don't exist. It's just because they're not scary.
Well, like, you're from the UP.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that happens in Lake Superior every... I don't know if
Oh, you're talking about the turning where the corpses come up?
Yes, where all of a sudden, the lake that never gives up its dead gives up all of its dead. And because the lake is... You can explain it. Like, I can get into temperature differences and whatnot. But in reality, it is a lake. No one knows where it's fed from. People have tried to figure it out, never fully figured it out.
Is it fed by a well, by a spring? Is it fed by water flowing into it, which is obvious, yes, but it doesn't account for the amount of water and or the temperature of the water.
Yes.
Is there a giant glacier underneath? And they've gone underneath, and nobody knows. The water is just there. It's just magic.
Well, and then every once in a while you have thousands of corpses float to the surface for a little bit.
Well, they float up to just beneath the surface. More like, what the hell's that swamp in Lord of the Rings?
But the one with the dead corpses and
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, that one. And they come up just below the surface, and sometimes, okay, yeah, it's the whole fucking thing, man. It is weird. Sometimes, of course, the corpses get washed up on shore, and then they're picked up. Sometimes they'll go out and they'll net a few of them, try to figure out who they are. But in general, we just let them sink back down because that's their grave.
Yep. The lake never gives up its dead, except for that one point.
Except for that one time every 20-some years. So, yeah, it's magic.
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing is, are people too rigid in their thinking? Because...
Well, hold your thought, because I'm going back up to another thought that you had, and I'm going to explain it because you keep saying it's not black and white, it's a shade of green. People that's been following us for years understand the statement. But what it is if you think in black and white, the next color that you expect us to say is gray. It's not black and white, it's shades of gray. But the thing is in reality, it's not black or white. It's the completely unexpected, a shade of green. Who the hell expects a shade of green to come from black and white? That's what that means is it's not this or that. It's the thing that you never expected it to be.
Well, and black and white is itself a product of the binary thinking.
Yes.
Which then makes gray simply the continuation of the binary thinking. It's still binary. There's just...
Gradient.
Yeah. And
where as soon as you say green, it's not only the unexpected thing, but now you have a 3-point way of thinking. That there's the possibility for the unexpected, the third thing to happen.
yes, well, everything is possible. Everything isn't probable. It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the improbability engine,
Yes.
where they can...
They actually explained it remarkably well for dummies like
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
It's actually explained very well, the improbability machine, and they start throwing out numbers which may or may not be accurate, but the explanation is sound enough.
Well, another thing is belief. Because everyone argue... Because I've actually been accused of this, which I'm always shocked by, because someone will call me an atheist in the pagan sphere. I've had this thrown at me before, which is always confusing to me because I'm usually the one arguing that we have many gods, and they're the one getting mad that I told them that the one super god they have isn't a thing.
Yeah.
But...
Or you're an atheist because you don't believe in magic, and then you're like, but everything is magic. You're a crazy Wiccan.
Yes, everyone has these... It becomes an us versus them, which is natural, but there's no...
In war, there is no good and there is no bad. There is no good guy, there is no bad guy. There is noble and ignoble. You can have two noble peoples go to war with each other. They are simply in conflict with each other.
Well, it's like the Red Baron. If I remember correctly, the Red
Baron was one of the last enemies that was heralded or venerated.
Yes, he was basically venerated by the other side because he was so impressive.
Yes.
And then by World War II, it's a completely different story. Everything becomes vilified, monstrous. There is no honoring the enemy.
It's
And
the
that's-
empire versus the rebel.
Yes. Well, and actually, that brings me to that, and I'll circle back to belief. Oh, circle back. I said the wrong thing. Oh, no. But the idea of good and evil extends into we're good, therefore they're evil. They play off it all the time. But in reality, there is us and them, and both sides can be noble individuals and just be at odds. There doesn't have to be the Dark Lord and his minions spreading forth across the land. It can simply be, my people need more land. Your people have land. It's nothing personal. We just need it. And I care more about my people than yours.
Yeah. Yeah, quite simply. Or you have two countries at war. One needs more land, the other one needs more people. How are they going to fight this war?
Yes, because the simple fact is, by human nature, you'd think just on a flat surface, just thinking, what do we do? Well, here's my people. Can I have a bit of land? Yeah, here you go. You'd think it'd be that simple. It's never that simple with people.
Yeah.
People are both incredibly simple and incredibly complicated.
Well, yeah, because that particular war, you would think one would be like, oh, well, you need more land because you have too many people. We need more people. We have too much land. Let us encourage some of your people to come to our country and we will give you some land. But no. Never works out that way.
No, it always comes to war.
And yeah, one side can do some absolutely monstrous stuff. But that just makes them ignoble. It doesn't make them evil.
No, and
It makes them malicious. It doesn't make them evil. Because the way people use the word evil, it becomes a tangible thing. Show me one atom, one molecule of evil in the universe, and I'll eat my fucking hand.
Well,
it doesn't exist in that way.
Well, justice, duty, honor, nobility, all of these things, they do not have tangible qualities, and yet we believe in them. That itself is a kind of belief. And it's like I've said, if the Dagda showed up in the middle of Times Square and just used his cauldron to feed everyone in the city, pulled a super Jesus, basically. Jesus
did, what was it, fish and bread. But then you have one of our gods show up and do it right.
Yeah.
And, fish and bread, yes, I have that. I also have some stew, and would you like some apple pie? And
yeah.
And.
Yes.
Because our gods do shit the right way.
Yes, but if he showed up and just did that and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was the Dagda, nobody would believe in the Dagda. People would know the Dagda. They would not need to believe in him. He physically showed up. And that's actually another interesting thing.
Well, the Christians kind of warped that word. Well, that's why they call it belief and not knowledge. Or whatever it is that they fucking say. It's what you just explained. The many groups they've grabbed a hold of that idea and they've warped it. Anyways, what was you saying?
Oh, I was just saying that's kind of how belief works, but like to tie it back into justice, for instance, we have to believe in it for it to exist.
Yes.
So,
quite simply, we have to will it into existence.
Yes, because you might live your entire life never seeing justice happen. Live in an unjust society where injustice happens every single day. Justice can still be something you believe in, even if it's by via negativa, by never seeing it.
Yeah. Quite simply. And the thing is that's where we come in as people. We make it exist wherever possible. That's part of what makes it so hard in the modern world to follow the ethnic way, and where people are like, it's so hard. It's not. It is terribly easy. The choices are terribly easy, and they're yours to make. When you see an actual injustice, not a perceived injustice, but an actual injustice, do you stand up against that actual injustice?
Well, it's a little like everybody, because I've brought this up before, our gods they're living. They aren't dressed in the armor of the 10th century. That's ludicrous. That's a stylistic, fantastical choice. It actually backdates the gods. The gods look just like us. I view Tyr much more likely to show up as a one-armed war veteran. Ragged, shaggy, just completely fed up. Don't take no shit from nobody. Closer to the Punisher than to some Viking sometime. That's much more likely in my head because I understand that the gods continue on. Why wouldn't a goddess wear a sundress? Why wouldn't a god wear a flannel? What is wrong with this? And the idea of them having to be dressed in these fantastical armors is itself this idea of it's in the past.
Yeah.
It's not a living tradition.
I mean, it's kind of cool, but that's not where they live. They live here today. It's kind of cool to see out now Tyr with a shield and a spear and the chainmail and the helmet, or pick a freaking god. To see them in the period pieces. This is kind of cool. And I get it. But they're also here with us. So how is Tyr today? He might have regrown his hand. He might still only have one hand. Tyr is typically portrayed with one hand. So because we're making an image, one hand set, it makes it clear that it's Tyr. And then let's put him in some battle dress. What is today's modern battle dress? Well, that'd be a bulletproof vest or a flak jacket. Yes, these two things are two different things. Ask anybody that's had to use them. Ask somebody from the military or the police. They'll tell you there is a distinct difference between a bullet resistant vest and a flak jacket. Anyways, he might be wearing a military helmet of some kind, or some kind of visored hat so that he can see the enemy in the distance. He'll have some kind of firearm. Why? Because that is today's bow, that is today's spear. He'll have some kind of sidearm, probably a knife. Oh my goodness. I am actually making him sound like a soldier, but he is not a soldier. He does not follow orders very well.
No, that's why I said the Punisher. We've even talked.
The Punisher is
pretty
Tyr.
close.
That's as close as there is in today's modern media.
Well, and I think the reason...
And it's not even actually the comic books. It's not the TV show. It's the perception of who the Punisher is.
Yeah, not the actual Punisher, the perception of the Punisher. People are actually imprinting... They're even using the Punisher symbol similar to how the T-Waz was used.
Mm-hmm.
Marking it on their weapons, marking it on their stuff as a symbol of veneration. And this is actually... I think the reason people get so uppity, like, I don't like that, is because they always think of depicting the gods in tuxedos. They always think of depicting the gods in...
Why would our gods be in tuxedos?
Tuxedos or business suits. They always go straight for these sorts of things. Why would our gods choose to be dressed like that? What about our gods' personalities indicate that they would want to be a CEO? Would want to be a stockbroker? Would want to be... most of these things, like, you are much more accurate depicting...
I mean, there are gods that might do that. Because we have gods of mercantilism.
Oh, yeah, Hermes.
Yeah.
Hermes, I could see doing that.
I think he'd play more fair than most of the mortals, to be honest. And this is something I've noticed in the modern world. If you play actually fair, people think that you're crooked as shit.
Oh, yeah, it's odd.
It's weird.
Yes. Well, another example would be Othin. I don't think he would be a stockbroker. I think, because actually they did this well. Of all the things they got right in God of War, not God of War.
American Gods.
No, not even that.
Oh.
Thor Ragnarok, that's the show.
Okay.
I purged it from my brain because that movie was terrible. But Othin showing up, bumming it out with homeless people on Midgard. That's actually accurate, and I actually have gotten into arguments with people about that.
Well, and people get really offended about that, and I'm like, what, you think that the homeless people don't deserve a god?
Yeah, it's
Are they so lowly that they don't deserve a god?
Well, they're basically, okay, I'm going to use a liberal term, but gentrifying. They're taking the god of the thief, the beggar, and the hanged man and trying to make him
their own. It's the same shit that the rich people always do. Oh, the poor people are doing these things. They make it look good. Now let's take this from them. That's actually why I fight for Othin, the beggar king, the god of the hanged man, the god of the desperate, is because people are doing with him what rich people have done with the sleeveless T-shirt.
The sleeveless T-shirt, the torn jeans, They take something that is really just how you survive, and then they try to make it a fashion
and take it away.
Well,
they actually do, like those one undershirts. They're like an egg. It's a special cut. It's old school cut of undershirt. They've taken them off the shelves. They've jacked the prices up on them to the point where they are now expensive, and it's the exact same shirt.
Well, and Othin's not even the only god that's had this done to them. Another famous example, actually, is Dionysus.
Yeah, Dionysus has had it done with him. Pan actually had it done with him at one point.
Oh, yeah, it's because these gods of the wilds, the gods of the rural folk, become popular with the rich, and then they turn them into something they're not, like the hedonistic fat frat boy that a lot of people think when they think Dionysus.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
That's the version that the rich people made up.
Well, it's because they made Dionysus reflect who the fuck they were.
Yeah,
they're fat, slovenly, fucking.
He became to them the god of party animals, and he was a party animal with an emphasis on the animal bit.
Yeah,
like older depictions of Dionysus, freaking horns, thick ass beard, like a beard that comes down.
Big
to his
muscular guy. There's folklore. You gotta kind of dig around for it, but it's there. Where drinking the wine of Dionysus is dangerous. You have to. He's very giving. He's very friendly, but he'll offer you a drink of wine, and you have to be careful accepting that drink because you might lose yourself for an hour or for 20 years.
Well, and the thing about Dionysus is one of the things he would give his followers is make them half beast again.
Yeah.
So he's actually a god of anti-civilization.
Well, and yeah, that's exactly what those stories infer is you become wild. You just stop being civilized.
Yes.
For anywhere between an hour to the rest of your life. You might become lost, big giant air quotes again, from the civilized perspective. But what it is he just returns you to your wild self, your wild nature.
Well, and that's actually one thing that's indicative because there's a lot of people that are like, back to nature. We're all animals. Okay, but they never take that in the right direction. They always make it degenerate. They always make it an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't help it. I'm an animal. Animals can help it. It's like in Futurama. I'm letting my I can't help it, Leela. I'm trapped in this room. I'm just letting my waste fall wherever it may. Like an animal. Leela, animals go in the corner. Fry. Oh, the corner. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. And it starts becoming an excuse or a way to control other people. Or I'm superior than everyone else because of... That's not actual nature.
Well, and I usually use the hours as an example of a god that's been civilized, going from the goddess of the natural cycles of the seasons to the goddesses of the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Dionysus had a similar thing happen. The god of being wild, basically, of connecting to the wild self, becoming the god of party animals. These are two completely different things, and a lot of people that try to go wild, quote unquote, go more towards the manufactured party animal, hedonistic, giving into all this modern bullshit. They actually go further from animal. They become domesticated. Dionysus is more about being wild, and that's the other thing is...
that doesn't mean uncontrolled, and because here's the thing. Bears don't just kill other bears all willy-nilly. That they're not that uncontrolled. They do have self-control.
Well, bears actually have some semblance of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
They will actually march in a certain way through these historic, basically pilgrimages and migration routes for bears to the point where there's paw marks marked in the stone.
Mm-hmm.
They will have...
I remember when I first told you about that, and you're like, well, yeah, you've been right about everything else, so I don't really doubt it, but I doubt it, and then you found it, and you're like, holy shit!
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like bears will actually get together and basically have a going-away party.
The paintings of the bears in the circle, and they're either walking around in a circle or dancing in a circle.
Yeah.
That's not made up.
Well, and bears even have holidays, like the salmon run.
Yes.
Because, well, that's not a holiday. A lot of
get
our...
together.
And they
do a thing.
And there is peace, because that's actually a
thing.
thing.
Well, relative peace. Well, just like any of our good celebrations, there's going to be a couple scraps on the side.
Oh, yeah. But it's actually a thing that's reflected in our own nature, is during a holiday, you're not supposed to do anything wrong. during Midsummer, during Easter, during Yuletide. This is a time of peace. You don't start shit now. And it's in our nature. That's the whole thing, is that's why it's an ethnic way instead of an ethnic faith. It's in our nature. Because the members of our people that we tell these things to, that react negatively, it's not because they think we're wrong. It's because they know that we're right and they're scared.
Yeah. Well, and I've even tested that, saying things that are just blatantly not right. The reaction is different. They'll argue against it, but they don't have that sense of urgency and fear versus when you say the thing that is point blank true. I think, honestly, on our analytics for the podcast that you guys are listening to, our finish retention rate is really high. But usually when the show first starts, it'll be 2-3 minutes, and there's like a 50% drop. Just throwing out a number because it's not always 50. Sometimes it's 25. We've had up to a 90% drop, and it's because we said something undeniably true that nobody wanted to hear. And then, fortunately, people, they either come back, they calm down, and they come back and they listen, or people come in later, hear things that we're saying, and they're like, you know what, these guys are spitting truth. I'm going to go back and listen, and then the retention rate goes back up. But we've had ones that were bottomed out for a month at a time before enough people went back to listen to boost the retention rate on it.
Yep.
We hurt people's feelings most deeply by telling the truth.
We tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
It's like recently you finally got it into my head that the reason I get such a negative reaction when I describe what Othin actually is because people are translating that to Wotan. Wotan and Othin aren't the same gods.
Mm-hmm.
Othin is the beggar king, the god of hanged men and thieves and beggars. Wotan is the spirit of the Germans.
Of the Germanic peoples.
These are two completely different gods. And here's the reality.
And I'm going to put this, since we're doing some division right now. The Germanic peoples are not the Scandinavian peoples. They have their own goddess. The Scandinavian people are the people of Skadi. The Germanic people are the people of Wotan.
Well, and even, let's go with the Saxons, because the Saxons have Saxnot. They actually subdivide out into their own group because of that tribal god.
Yes. So these are not the same gods.
Yes, and
they can't be.
And these are all members of our race, but we have different tribal makeups. It's why I always tell people, just because you venerate a god of Europe does not make it an ethnic way. If I wanted that, I would have just gone straight to the Greek pantheon because it's the easiest to find info on.
Well, and let's be honest. We're going to be completely freaking honest for a moment. Just because we don't doesn't mean that we don't want to kill each other. The Scandinavians and the Germanics, just because they don't kill each other doesn't mean that they don't want to.
Well, it's like the
Germanics and the Saxons. Just because they don't kill each other doesn't mean they don't want to. The Irish and the Scottish and the English and the Welsh and the Cornish, we all want to kill each other all the time. Just because we don't doesn't mean that we don't want to.
Well, the reality is nobody hates a member of one group more than the same group. So like
something like that.
The Scots and the Irish, nobody hates the Scots like the Irish, and nobody hates the Irish like the Scots.
And we both hate the English.
Yes.
And the English is standing there going, "What, bro? I'll pay you to beat up him." And both the Scots and the Irish look at the English and say, "That's exactly why we hate you."
Yes. It's a little... I mean, I love England, but the moment basically, they're like the rich kid that tries to be like, $20, beat him up. What? No, he's my friend. Here, 50.
Okay.
You think you can buy me with 50? 200. Punch.
Yeah. But the thing is, and the people of Ireland are of ire. People of Britain are of Brigid.
Yeah, that's
I
actually...
say with a shit-eating grin I can't get off my face.
Well, it's because it's true. That's what Great Britain's named after. Like, Britannia is based off, like, an Athenized Brigid.
Yeah, they took Brigid, turned her Greek or Roman, and then called her Britannia. And
gave her a lion.
Yeah, and, okay, we are Britain now. Because the damn dirty Celts that live in England won't stop venerating Brigid.
Well, I mean, frick, the Robin Hood used to outrank the church.
Yes.
Like, you'd have to get Robin Hood and Little John to ride with you if you were the bishop, or no one would show up. It's the reality is we're a very tribal people, and while there are natures across the board for our entire species as Hyperboreans, each tribe has their own little quirks.
Yes.
Like
and the thing is, we don't like each other. It doesn't mean that we need to go to war with each other, but we don't actually like each other. We tolerate each other.
Well, and the reality is like I said earlier with the Clemenza quote of, you got to go to war every 10 years to get rid of the bad blood. That keeps the wars small. That's why we had war games. People could still die, but you might have
People
one.
die playing football and baseball.
Yeah, that's what those are. Like, you see the women on the sidelines just cheering, almost tears in their eyes. That's a callback to when there would be these wars, these
and
small
sorry,
wars.
Europeans, that's American football, not the hunting game that you guys think of as football.
No, soccer is a hunting game. The ball is the rabbit. But that's the women calling back to, yes, get him, stab that motherfucker.
Yes, knock him down, roll him over.
Yeah, and there would be one or two deaths usually, probably a bit more if people got too rough.
Well, it depends. There could be entire wars where there was no deaths. Somebody suffered a broken arm when, I don't know, Harold smashed the shield smashed the shield of Brian with his hammer, and it broke Brian's arm. Oh, what a devastating day that was. It was the one injury in the whole war this summer. It happens.
Well, and occasionally you'll have someone die, like in a football
And by
game.
the way, the only thing I made up in that was the names because I couldn't remember the names.
Yes.
That was an actual thing that is mentioned in war history. It was a war all summer long during the war season. And there was one injury, and it was a broken arm.
Well, and then these things just continued as sports. That's why the more rule-bound sports become, the worse they get. It's a continuation of these war games. And when you realize that armies back in pagan days, yes, if you had some serious shit going down, you'd have armies in the tens of thousands.
Well, and people dying.
Yes, but if you didn't, and it wasn't serious shit on that level, you could have two armies of 20
war,
people.
And then there's war.
Yes. Big boy war and small war.
Right. So what we was just talking about is just war. But then you got the big boy war, which is what most people think of as war. And that's where things get wretched. Well, and it's because there's actual blood grudges.
Actual blood grudges.
Or
and
need.
That's what we're building up to. We need war. This whole No More Brothers war is a psyop. If nothing else, we need these little wars to keep our own sanity, to keep ourselves strong.
Well, why do the Irish always fight each other? Because they're the only worthy opponents. We have to. But the thing is because we're fighting with each other in that way, we aren't killing each other so that we remain strong.
Well, and then people always try to complicate stuff, whether they're normal people, normies, or whether they're people in the pagan sphere. Like, people start talking about animism, and they get all sorts of strange with it, talking about Native American crud and whatever. You want to see animism of the European kind? Watch Disney's Robin Hood.
Or just watch Disney, period.
Oh, yeah, they use a lot of European animism, like the mice in Cinderella are house spirits.
Or the singing teapots and fucking that.
Beauty
and
and
the Beast. It was a really bad movie, yes. Beauty and the Beast. The singing utensils. That is European animism. They didn't invent that idea. All they did was put it to film.
Well, and it's been
in a bad way, but they put it to film. And if you like that movie, that's fine. You just bonked your head. I understand. This happens to people. But they didn't. The stereotypical Disney princess. And all the birds and the deer and the mice come running out of the woods. That's a Germanic fairy tale thing. They didn't make that.
Oh yeah,
up.
you look up any Germanic fairy tale illustration that has a female main character. There's some kind of bird or animal right next to her.
Usually on her fingers or on her hair, bow
or
tie.
right next to her or something like that.
And then you got the Cinderella version. I think it's Cinderella.
Yeah, those are Celtic house spirits.
Those are Celtic house spirits where she happens to be singing. In the Germanics, they sing and call the animals. Where the Celts, it's the house spirits, and she just happens to be singing. She isn't calling them. She's singing with them. There is a distinct difference, much like a warrior who has a farm is very different from a farmer who wars.
Well, and the thing is we still do European animism to this day. The reason everybody's trying to figure out what was European animism is because it's not a was, it's an is.
Oh, and we can't leave the Scandinavians out of that either, because the Scandinavians, when they do their weird singing, theirs doesn't call house spirits. Their singing doesn't call the wild animals forth. It calls forth the goats and the cows and the trolls and the giants.
And the swans.
And the swans. I always forget the swans. But in their folklore, from what I can see, these are the most common things that are called when they sing.
And trolls aren't evil. They're elementals. Many of them were heroes. And yes, some trolls are actually just vilified people. That's a really common thing where the pagans just get attributed the spirit name.
Yeah.
But like that rock that used to be a troll and you don't break it, or the elf rocks in Iceland.
Oh, what was that one? It was like the troll's nose or something, and then the government itself paid to have it reattached.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
But I'm sure somebody out there in the wilderness of the interwebs is aware of what I'm talking about.
Well, and the thing is we can't help it. Our gods and our spirits show up. It's like we were talking about the movie Labyrinth by Jim Henson. The Goblin King is Harlequin.
Yes, and they did him very well. Oh, I did everything that you asked. I don't remember what the first thing was, but you were scared. You were fearful, and I was scary.
Yes. Well, it was you coward. I was terrified. I was frightening.
Yes, that's it. He did everything that she wanted him to do. She cowered, so he was frightening.
Well, it's even in the wish that she makes at the beginning of the film, not the one to get rid of her brother, but through hardships, perils untold and hardships unnumbered, or whatever. He gave her that.
Yes, he literally did everything that she wanted.
Yes,
and that is the Harlequin. The Harlequin is very dangerous. This is very true. Or Nanny McPhee. That's another example of God's.
That's Hulda.
Yeah, that's Hulda. When the baby is in the little catapult and going to get catapulted into the she was not bluffing.
Hulda doesn't bluff, and her threats can get lethal.
If the boy had not asked.
Had not said please, and specifically please Nanny McPhee, they'd have one less sibling.
Yes.
And that's on Hulda's list of things she can do, because she's the
and has done in the folklore.
Yes, well, because she's the one that gives out the infant spirits.
She is more than capable of taking them back. Sometimes she'll show up to children and offer to take back the child,
which is effectively what she was doing there. Because how does she take it back?
Yeah. If you don't want it, well, it's already here. There's only one way for me to take it back.
Yes. And that's the thing, we can't help it. These gods are going to show up. They're part of us. So it doesn't really matter to me if people actively venerate them. We can't be venerating this foreign god. At the very start of this episode, we even mentioned why. This Christian god is not ours. He won't save us. He won't do anything for us. He won't embolden us. He is not ours. At most, we are food for him or annoyances. We mean nothing to him. And in the end, our gods are with us whether we want them to be or not. Wotan is in the back of the head. Ire is watching the Irish. The Morrigan, Brigid, Perun, Zeus, Dionysus, Hermes, Othin, Thor, all of them are with us whether we want them to be or not. So the real question is what are we doing to be worthy of them and the rest of our people? Lorekeeper out.
All right, and then I'll see you guys in 2 weeks, I think. I could be wrong. Could be before that. Could be after that. All right, either way, see you guys next time.